Greetings and welcome to Keeping Pace with the Business Transformation Agenda webinar. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. A question and answer session will follow the presentation. You may submit your question via the web at any time by using the Ask a Question feature on the left side of your screen. For technical support, please click on the question mark icon in the upper right corner of your screen, or press *0 on your telephone keypad if you have dialed into the conference by telephone. It is now my pleasure to introduce our host, Senior Vice President, Dr. Ulrich Kalex. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Diego. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone on the call and the session today. I'm very pleased to be joined for this session today by Gordon Barnett, a very seasoned analyst from Forrester Research, and also author of more recent waves on the topics of strategic planning and enterprise architecture management. And as you will learn throughout the course of our session today, those are two subjects that are of particular importance to successes in business transformation management. With this, I'd like to hand it over to Gordon, who will actually cover the first part of our session.
Hi, thank you, Ulrich, and hello, everyone. If there's one thing that I'd like you to get out of my session today, it's that first part of the slide there talking about challenge thinking. Forrester is a very big believer that it is only by challenging your existing thinking can you position yourself to lead change in the future and become more successful. Now, the topic today is keeping pace with business transformation agenda. I will be looking at this particularly from how it impacts the enterprise architecture professional and the impact of that on the tools that they need to be successful in their role. Now, many of you have probably never heard of Forrester before, but we are not a consultancy, we are a research organization, and what we tend to do is we work with business and technology executives to understand their challenges, how they may overcome those challenges, and then we write reports. And the whole intention at the moment is to develop customer-obsessed strategies that help the organization drive its growth. Now, that the session itself will come in 3 parts. I will initially talk about a concept of age of the customer. This is something that Forrester has been talking about for well over 15 years and writing reports on it, and market imperatives. So these are the things that we believe that each role within an organization, but particularly enterprise architecture professionals, should have visibility of and deep understanding. It's always, when you look at research, you can always believe that some of the terminology that is used is all marketing blurb. So the second section is actually talking about real-life examples of how important these market imperatives that Forrester talks about are to our customers, to the clients of Forrester. And then finally, we'll go into the last section, which is talking about what it means to the enterprise architecture professional and how tools can help them be more effective in addressing those challenges. So the first section, age of the customer and Forrester's market imperatives. Now, the age of the customer, as I mentioned, has been written about for at least 15 years. This isn't something about, oh, the customer is king. It's not that type of approach. What the age of the customer is all about is that organizations are now changing themselves so that they prioritize things to do with the customer ahead of all of the other differentiations that they may have. So you'll find that they focus their strategy, their energy, their budget on all the processes and capabilities that will enhance the relationship and the interactions with the customers. And the reason that we say the traditional competitive barriers, as you will see in slides to come, rather than look at product differentiation or operational excellence, it is the customer experience aspects that are the most important. So if we now look at this from, okay, age of the customer, I get it. What are these so-called market imperatives that Forrester talks about? Well, the market imperatives are best presented in a real-life example. So what I have here is a slide which is going to show you how healthcare look at these imperatives. So the first one is customer experience. Customer experience is more than just engagements with the customer. It is accepting that the customer can actually move from supplier to supplier very easily. And what you need to do is have relationships which enable you to win, retain, and serve your customers. You need to be aware of their customer behavior. In the healthcare, patients are now in the driver's seat. They can change policy providers, etc. The second market imperative we call the mobile mind shift. It is age of the customer, and even though the word customer is there, when we talk about mobility, we also look at mobility of our employees, our customers, and suppliers and other stakeholders. So what you're actually finding here is that in the healthcare, that the patients within healthcare are now connected via various technologies and are able to do things while they're on the go. The third market imperative we call digital disruption, and you will see this in every industry, but if we look at it from a healthcare perspective, there are a number of smart devices that are now wearables that can help detect the health, the behaviors of specific customers, which can then advise the healthcare people. And these new technologies are impacting and disrupting the industry and enabling other suppliers and providers to come into the industry. And then finally, we have the big data, turn on big data into insights. This isn't talking about having masses of data. When we talk about things from a big data point of view, it's having relevant data that you can have analytics on, and you can have insight which will then affect the way that you serve your customers and deliver your products and services. So you'll find, particularly in the healthcare, there is a significant amount of data that is not in the control of healthcare providers that they now have access to, which can help them look to do things like supporting chronic disease. So these are what we call the market imperatives: customer experience, big data, digital disruption, and the mobile mind shift. You have to address all of those market imperatives to be successful in the age of the customer. Now, the second stage that we're going to go on, you can all argue, if you haven't seen the research, that they're just buzzwords. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to bring these market imperatives to life by showing you what Forrester clients have actually done. So the first one is looking at customer experience. Now, if you look at this, this is a question for a survey, so most of our research is done by interviews and surveys with our clients. You can see that when asked about the top priorities over the next year, and this was a survey in 2014, so this is what they expected in 2015, improve customer experience, or the experience of customers, was the second top priority. So obviously growth revenues, the whole idea is that you're going to hopefully grow your revenues, but if you look at the next two items, this sort of shows you the balance that customers have. If you believe the 3C model of strategy, what you usually find is there is a balance between customer intimacy, operational excellence, and product differentiation. You can see here that there is a heavy bias on the customer intimacy, the customer experience, rather than the operational, which is reducing the costs, or product differentiation, which is differentiation in the market. So this is showing you that it is a level of importance to our clients. If we go on to how is that really impacting our clients, again, we'll use the healthcare payers. If you just look at the technology imperatives there based on the drivers of customer experience, you can see that they're rethinking customer across subscriber systems. You're seeing that they're looking at multi-channel. You'll see that they're looking at digital strategy, particularly on customer engagement. You are seeing that they're embracing mobile technologies and applications, mastering the integration, managing the data. So you can see here that healthcare technologists are looking at aligning the technology to actually address these business challenges. If we go on to the next slide, what we're talking about here is the mobile side of Mindshift. Now, in the center, you can see this circle, which has discover and various other stages. This is what Forrester talks about as the life cycle of a customer from the customer's point of view. So we're not looking at it from the organization's point of view about being a potential customer and then being a customer and then retiring. This is the stages that a customer goes through its interactions with an organization. So first it discovers you, then it explores you by comparing your services with your competitors. Then there's a decision to buy your services. Then they use your services. Then they will have interactions for support about your services, and then eventually there will be some sort of advocacy. Now, what you can see here on the outside are the steps that health payers are actually using to look at how mobile can be used at each step of the customer life cycle. And this is the key point, that everything that the organization is doing is now from the external, the outside in perspective of satisfying the customer. If we then go on to big data, again, what we did in some research here is try to have a look if there's some correlation between organizations that are looking at big data by expanding their implementation versus how successful they are in their growth strategies. And the bottom figure, or the bottom row, is actually showing you that organizations that had 15% or greater growth, you'll actually see that they also have the maximum expanding and upgrading implementation as far as big data is concerned, 21%. Versus 13% of the people who were lower than 15% growth. So big data is a big issue for many organizations. Finally, we go on to the disruptive technologies, and what we were really looking at here was how does disruptive technologies impact enterprise architects? And on the left-hand side, the rows are reflecting the typical disruptive technologies that are occurring within many industries. And the verticals, the columns, are showing you the impact to the organization. So you can see in both the first two columns there is significant interest and impact in planning and architecture and innovation. And we would hope that enterprise architects are heavily involved in the innovation process. So hopefully that's brought things to life, and you are now more comfortable that this is not just buzzwords, this is real life. These are challenges that organizations need to address. So what we're now going to do is have a look at how this impacts the enterprise architecture role. And hopefully the tools like Software AG will be meeting the demand for these enterprise architects. So the first one is we are looking at supporting the business technology agenda. Now you will hear lots of research outside of Forrester about bimodal IT. Forrester prefers to use business technology and information technology under the banner of tech management. So business technology is addressing the business challenge. And the sorts of things that we would expect is that EAs would be involved in being able to look at sourcing decisions from an architectural aspect. Do we outsource capability? Do we insource capability? Do we enhance existing capabilities? What are the technology choices? What are the financial options? And this is very key, and this is my new research on the financial lens of architecture and how it influences architectural choice. And then there's the impact to organizational structures. You should not, or hopefully organizations will not have fixed structures that just try to cram new and enhanced capabilities into that structure. Maybe there's an element of organizational redesign to support the business better. Balance of focus. What we tend to find is that enterprise architects now are looking at three prime areas. There's the business and IT planning, so it's integrated planning, it's agile planning. So we really need to know about the business change. On the right-hand side, integrated governance. We can't have the business just making technology decisions just as much as we can't have IT making technology decisions. There needs to be an integrated governance framework whereby you can make all these decisions. And then there, as I mentioned before, about innovation. Many business executives are very tech savvy nowadays, but they are still reliant on technologists to provide them with technology trends and to advise them about different ways of actually doing business now. If we look at strategic alignment, this is always going to be crucial for enterprise architecture. And the reason that I showed you this slide is historically, so from 2019 up to the survey we did in 2014, is quite interesting that a number of the top priorities for enterprise architects in 2009 have now become the top priorities in 2014, having shifted over the years. So a prime example, the number one within 2009 is now the number one in 2014, even though it did drop down in 11 and 12 to the second position. You will see the consolidated technology was number 2 in 2009 and then went all the way down to number 6 in 2013 before coming back up to number 2 now. So what it seems to be is that a lot of the EA focus now is on how technology is going to help the business move forward. Road mapping, instrumental in demonstrating alignment. The key here is that roadmaps are change roadmaps. They're architectural roadmaps showing change. They are not project roadmaps. They have context and people can see what is changing in the organization, whether it is done by 1 or 100 projects. You have to have a project view, but the context needs to be done through a change roadmap. New roles. We are seeing more and more that as enterprise architects get consumed within the business to address business challenges, they need new competencies, new skills, and sometimes there's a redefinition of roles. two roles that we have seen increase in are digital customer experience architects and also digital operation architects. These are people who are not technologists. They are people who understand how to do customer experience end-to-end, how to do operations end-to-end. They understand digital business models and how to work. So there are new skills, new tools, new methods and frameworks that need to be introduced. Again, as more and more enterprise architects move into the strategy space, what we are seeing is that there are more and more conceptual frameworks that people are seeing. And what you can actually see here, on the right-hand side, the gray bubble is where a lot of EA practices work. The next layer, the business architecture, is more recent and is becoming more mature. But there is then the market architecture and ecosystem architecture, very conceptual layers that help you understand how the organization works in an environment and how that environment impacts the organization. Guiding investment decisions. Many EAs go down the wrong route of trying to be the decision makers. What they need to be is the influencer of the decision makers. They need to show viewpoints that other technologists and business executives cannot produce. Here's an example of a bubble chart which is advising which business capabilities should be invested in to support a strategy. These sorts of views are not provided by other roles within an organization, and therefore the tools need to be able to support these needs. So that leaves me at the very end, very, very quick. Hopefully it gives you a view. Maybe it's challenged your thinking, and maybe it's opened up a few doors to make you realize that you need to be operating in other areas or widen your scope, and it maybe will make you think about how you use your tools. So with that, I'd like to hand back to Ulrich.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Very interesting outline of what the challenges are for enterprise architects today in delivering to the needs of digital business transformation. I am now going to take this to the next step to outline to the folks on the call how that can actually materialize in organizational setup, in operating models, as well as in the underlying tool support through a planning, architecture, and portfolio management solution. And I want to start with just reflecting on one of the slides that Gordon had in his slide deck, showing how enterprise architecture is challenged to find a balance and continuously find a balance between three different dynamics in the organization. So on the one hand, there is a need for continuous planning. Planning is no longer a seasonal exercise that happens once a year in context of budgetary decisions. Planning is something that is a recurring exercise because of the speed that digitization has taken. I can't wait 12 months for a decision in the digital age. And it is inevitably a decision that needs to happen collaboratively between business and IT, because it is the business that we are driving, and it's IT that is oftentimes the primary driver for enabling that business change. And we need to make sure that business and IT are steering their operating models in a cohesive and coherent fashion. And that means day-to-day decision making need to be aligned between the business and the IT camp, and that calls for a joint governance model. And then thirdly, we have the fast acceleration of technologies. How many generations of technology are we seeing nowadays within a year's cycle? So there need to be a trust relationship between business and IT, that IT expertise is following those changes on the technology front and making sure to seek out the opportunities that will enable the business to move to the next frontier. So when we look at harmonizing business and IT strategies, we always need to reflect how is business strategy reflected in the IT landscape. And not just the IT landscape, but really the IT business landscape or the business IT landscape. So how do we operationalize on the business strategy? What needs changes for strategy to be realized? How can we reconcile between business and IT strategy? How can we translate changes in business strategy into changes in IT strategy? And we need to not forget that between business and IT strategy, certainly IT strategy is still the slower of the two parts. We need to contextualize the business strategy in architecture viewpoint. So understand what is the business architecture that is to deliver against that business strategy. Which capabilities need changes? Where are those business processes or customer journeys that we will have to either introduce or modify in order to deliver against the business strategy? How is that translated into application architecture and ultimately technology architecture? We need to enable business and IT to use the same information base for decision making. And obviously that is a joint information base. And that also means we need to articulate that information base in a way that is accessible to the business stakeholders, which are the business decision makers. So they are very senior in the organizational setup. So we need to agree on business capability maps. We need to establish common understanding of the enterprise operating model, and we need to jointly settle on roadmap articulations that are accessible equally to business and IT. And we need to maintain a line of sight for the business and IT ship to be steered against. So those are the architecture roadmaps that Gordon mentioned. Remember the lineage chart that he had in his slide deck, coming from the business outcomes all the way to the investment decisions through various layers of architectural articulation. We need to bring in the portfolio assessment approach to make sure that we keep a healthy state of portfolios as and when we are making these changes in order to make agility, make responsiveness happen in the interplay between business and IT. And we need to establish a master planning practice that can balance out the short-term opportunities and the long-term strategies. So when we look at how that alignment is realized in Alphabet, there's 4 important elements and aspects to this. On the one hand, there is the capability management. So using capabilities to articulate what goals require which changes to which business capabilities. Understand the impact of those goals, because chances are that I have multiple of goals coming from different parts of the organization that turn out to be either redundant or conflicting as and when they are portrayed vis-a-vis the capability maps. Deriving implementation plans and strategy contribution analysis from the capability juxtaposition is an important aid to taking the right decisions in the investment arena. Understanding what strategy attainment means also means finding the right KPIs that can articulate strategy fulfillment, making sure those KPIs are established throughout the organization and there is a consistent and coherent measurement process in place so as to demonstrating to the organization that strategy is indeed being converged again. Assessing the portfolios to expose opportunities of alignment, to expose opportunities of reuse, to expose conflict and contradiction in the plans that are coming together from so many different angles of the organization, to allow what-if analysis and to express such what-if analysis in a way that is accessible to business decision makers, which by and large means express it again in some core performance or quality or risk indicators, because that's the notion business decision makers are used to. And establishing roadmaps, coming up with that living roadmap that Gordon mentioned, bringing different roadmap perspectives into interplay, and using this to further impact understanding and help revealing plan conflicts in bringing these different perspectives together. So here's an example of a strategy. So I want to become a caring bank as a strategic objective. I can articulate what are the capabilities that will be impacted by that business objective. I can articulate which, if any, of our products will be impacted by this business objective. I can articulate what are the architecture elements that will need changes as and when we go about realizing that business objective. And I have a clear understanding of how we measure attainment and what KPIs are crucial for the success along that business objective. When we look at how we spend our money, we obviously need to understand, are we providing positive business outcomes from the investments that we are making? So that is best being done by implementing an integrated portfolio management approach. We align the portfolios to business strategies, to capabilities, to demands. We manage the portfolios in a collaborative way, empowering experts throughout the organization that have the primary knowledge about such portfolios, and be those portfolios of products, be those portfolios of services, be those portfolios of customer segments, or portfolios of technologies or information. We need to monitor the investments that we are making, and that obviously is very closely related to the KPIs that we have identified and that we keep reviewing throughout the course of the implementation for the investment, as well as past the projects that are kicked off in support of the investment. We need to provide solution guidance as a result of our portfolio conversations. So that means, where do we have the blueprints for business solutions? How can we avoid inventing the wheel over and over again? How can we build commonality in our approach to addressing business challenges and digitization opportunities, as those will provide us with the premise for agility and responsiveness next time around. We need to improve our ability to assess architectural scenarios. Gordon was talking about the aspect of costing, the financial opportunity management associated with architectural scenarios. That all will have to be included in there. And we need to take into account the risk that is associated with those investments, risk that will expose itself in the processes that we are carrying out, in the sourcing models that we are adopting, in the systems that we are establishing and the information that we are exchanging between such systems. We need to anchor our compliance requirements, and remember, compliance is a moving target. Every now and so often, regulators will come back and tighten the screws. So we will have to understand how such compliance or regulatory requirements actually anchor in the architecture, and what change trajectories are required as and when such regulatory requirements are changing, so as to bringing them into the architectural planning process. And we need to increase awareness of threats and vulnerabilities, because with the proliferation of digitization, obviously the vulnerabilities of the enterprise are increasing significantly. So we need to improve the way we are discovering vulnerabilities and acting upon such vulnerabilities. And the way this is done is through integrated portfolio management, where we bring different types of portfolios, as exemplified here on the chart, in business strategy portfolios, IT change portfolios, and IT asset portfolios. How we bring them together and how we can make sure that decisions that are being taken in those different portfolio contexts are connected with one another. One of the challenges in those portfolios is that the transaction time of such decisions is still pretty extent, even if we were to work in an agile delivery mode. So we need to have a connectivity between the portfolio decisions to understand their impact ratings, but also understand how things will be changing over the course of the next weeks or months. and that is done through the notion of roadmaps. So looking at the risk consequences here exemplified for a specific business object called customer master data, we are able to understand what policies are applicable to such master data, and we are able to delineate how those primary compliance requirements, policy requirements, translate into the different elements and aspects of the business and IT architecture through relevant data lineage analysis. Help business embrace the technology means help business to understand how new technology capabilities can translate into customer experience management, operational excellence, new service offerings, such as combining a physical good with a digital service offering, and to establish differentiating capabilities. It also means we will have to, the enterprise architects have to help the business to understand, to embrace the hurdles to adopting new technologies, be those technological or regulatory in nature, or financial or organizational. Creating digital businesses means interrelating process, information, technology, and people. And that means, again, making this interplay transparent and visible to the business leaders that are to decide about the digital business solutions that are created in response to the strategic asks that business has come up with. So help choosing the right tools for shaping the digital business, establishing the right governance processes for a digital business transformation, understanding how business process analysis, how big data management, how adaptive application development, how cloud services, how mobile frontiers can be brought together to provide for an optimal success rate in digital business transformation. So when we look at the digitization from Software AG and through Alphabet, we first see that Software AG offers a comprehensive digital business platform. It just doesn't stay at bits and pieces. It brings in all the different aspects of business process management, of intelligent business operations, of streaming analytics, with the planning and management capabilities of business and IT transformation. Allow enriching market products with digital content is an important means to digitization for many of traditional brick and mortar companies, such as manufacturers of healthcare equipment who can actually provide hospitals and doctors with data analytics derived content that will improve the medication and anamnesis capabilities for such hospitals and doctors. And that obviously is an offering that goes on top of say, an MRI scanner or an X-ray machine. Scout out for technologies that are relevant to digitization and build innovation processes around such technologies, be those geodata management or location services or 3D printing or interoperability between shop floor IT and commercial IT. Help business to understand opportunities in the notions and contexts that they are most familiar with, and that means anchoring everything on the capabilities that are the common language for business and IT. Find new service models by understanding what the operating models are that the business has currently in place, where the differences between those operating models are, and how one can leverage operational data in improving product offerings that are created with that operating model. And then lastly, bridge the gaps between the physical world and the digital world further, and that means extend the perspective of business IT management into the worlds of production and product. So, focusing on specific market segments or product groups or channels or customer segments can be a differentiating factor. So you want to understand how your business revolves around those dimensions. And this is exemplified here in the chart for a customer segment, consumer high net worth. So we want to know how is this customer segment performing compared to competitors in the marketplace against qualitative criteria such as competitiveness or growth or customer satisfaction. We want to understand what is the business architecture that is in place in support of such customer segment, and how should that change over time in relation to the business strategy and the digital business transformation that we are pursuing. And then translate this into roadmaps and project plans that are focused on that specific customer segment in this case, but could equally be channel or market segment or whatsoever. All right, with this, I think we've come to the end of our presentation for now, and I'm curious to find out whether you have any questions that Gordon and I should be prepared to answer.
Thank you. Just a reminder to submit your questions. Enter them in the Ask a Question field on the left side of your screen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Uli, a number of questions have come in while you two have been presenting. And this first question is actually a question that could go to both of you, so you can decide among yourselves who's going to answer this. How is collaboration encouraged in the current business landscape, given that lack of trust and siloization among functions or departments is endemic in today's landscape?
Gordon, you want to take a first cut at this?
Yeah, sure. This is actually a common challenge for not only enterprise architects, but IT in general. And you used a very key word there, which is trust. And the way that people have built collaboration approaches is by building trust first. And the best way to build trust is to demonstrate how you can offer value to your stakeholders without taking away the fear or the barriers of that, which is usually to do with the control of decisions. Enterprise architects who go in and try to be dictatorial by actually saying you must follow this roadmap, you must do this. So it's a purist approach, do not build trust. So others are more about stakeholder engagement, understanding the problem and giving them options so that they make the decision. And when they see that value, you then start to have relationships and you get collaboration. The other thing that I would say is that EAs should not only build collaboration with an outward focus. Most of the information that enterprise architects need is provided by subject matter experts. So you are only as good, or your architecture is only going to be as good as the information that you've collected from subject matter experts. So you have to build those relationships and get them to contribute as well.
I think I couldn't agree more, and I believe the nature of an enterprise architect and enterprise architecture as a function is that of a facilitator, and not that of a decision maker. The decision ultimately has to rely with the people that are holding the budget, that are responsible for the business, and that have to deliver the outcome. But making those stakeholders better informed, giving them decision support that will help them finding the right balance in their decision making is a key requirement that enterprises have towards their enterprise architecture organizations, teams, and every individual enterprise architect. And I think I would also like to underline the importance of enterprise architecture is not the function that creates all the information that is required there. Enterprise architecture will have to reach out to the people that have that information firsthand and make sure those teams understand the value that this information has for the better of the enterprise as and when it is being used systematically in the decision making day in, day out.
Okay, thank you. This next question is one for Gordon. Gordon talks about the digital customer experience architect and the digital operations excellence architect on one of his slides. What skills are required from an enterprise architect today compared to 5 years ago?
A lot of it is a switch of focus from value to modeling. So if we look at enterprise architects in the past, there was a drive to model everything, to capture this repository of information and to manage that repository. So a lot of the focus was on modeling and having some sort of practice in place to manage the architecture. When we think of these new roles are value and outcome-based architects. They also look at end-to-end rather than specific architectural domains. So a customer experience architect will understand and have competency in all of the tools that you would expect a digital agency to use or a service agency. So things like journey mapping, being able to get the consumer behavior and things like that. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that you are still going to have subject matter experts, but you need to be at a level that you can build that relationship with those subject matter experts. So you've got to have tools that these people will understand. When it comes to the operational side, they've got to get away from just technology is always the answer. Yes, there is this digital technology and things have got to be digitized, but what you've really got to think about is the impact to the organization. So it's more about what is the impact of digitizing services, what is the impact of digitizing products, how does that impact the life cycles of products and services within the organization. So you have a lot more business acumen, and when I'm talking about business acumen, I'm not just talking about processes and systems. You understand the way that you do digital business.
Okay, thank you very much, Gordon. We still have quite a number of questions, but unfortunately we are out of time, so I'm going to pass this back to Uli now.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, Gordon. It was a very enlightening discussion, I believe. Also, thank you very much to everybody who has joined us on this call today. We have recorded this session, so for the ones that came in a little late or had to drop out a little early, they will be able to listen to the full recording at their own leisure. For today, I would like to thank you all. I wish you all a good holiday season, and hopefully we will be in contact soon again.